Once again, welcome. Listen, learn, and lead. It isn't just the name of this event, it's our commitment to students and to the broader community. When we listen to our students, when we listen to our constituents and we respond, we're building a better community, better opportunities for our students, and a better region overall. Let's listen to our students now.
I actually really do enjoy school. My favorite subject is math. I like school because it does prepare you for other points that you'll come to in your life.
I really like the independence on making choices for yourself.
I love our school spirit. A lot of it, like football games, we have a big student section, everybody participates. I think that's wonderful.
Oh, I really like the aspiration for a community atmosphere. I like that people are always willing to have other people included in their activities.
I like being able to learn new things, and about my school, I like how it's a small, like the class sizes are small, so I can meet everyone within my class and get to know them.
Something I love specifically about my school is how diverse it is, not only in the people, but in the different interests and the different clubs and opportunities we have.
Seeing people of different races and different cultures and different genders and different beliefs definitely shaped me in having a different worldview that I feel like other people don't have in 99% of America.
Another thing, I like the teachers. They're really caring and they obviously care about us. And they just inspire us to be better people.
I would say the most support in our school comes from individual staff members. I've personally had a lot of teachers reach out to me and give me that kind of backbone, or being like, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And that really does a lot.
It's because having a teacher that I'm more comfortable with is just an easier environment to learn in.
We have fun with it, and our teachers they do care about us, and they take the extra time to help us out when we're struggling.
I always feel like the staff is just there and ready to listen when you need someone to listen to you. And even if you don't feel like talking, if they see something is wrong, they give you that special attention that you may need. But I feel as though anxiety and depression is at an all-time high in high school.
I think something really important for adults to know about students today is just that we're trying, but we're drowning. And there are just so many outside pressures that influence our school life.
I'm kind of at a point where I'm maxed out because I'm doing a lot of different clubs and activities.
If you get A's, then maybe your teachers don't know that you didn't go to bed until 3 a.m., but you still got your A's, so isn't that the end goal? Isn't that all that matters?
My piece of advice would be, before you make assumptions about teenagers, take a second and talk to one.
Listen, learn, lead. School districts across Kent ISD are listening. We're here today to give you, our community, a look into the schools and to hear the voices of our students and our school leaders to help you better understand what's going on. You know, our schools are maybe different than what you recall. Today, we serve more than 100,000 students across Kent ISD. More than 90 different languages are spoken in those schools. Nearly half of our students are students of color. Some 12% are English language learners, meaning they're learning English while they're learning everything else. And nearly that same percentage have significant additional needs that need different supports and opportunities for them to be successful. Our schools enthusiastically serve every student every day. That's what we're here for. Let's listen some more.
I think my freshman year was when we just got back from COVID. It was very separated. Everybody was kind of still following the 6 feet apart thing, you know. That was a really interesting first year of high school. I thought it was gonna be totally different when I was a kid.
For me, my grades at first, they were getting dropped, right? But with the amazing help of my teachers and my counselors, you know, I remember one time I was feeling really down. I emailed my counselor, Ms. Bailey, and she really helped me get back on track, and I ended that year with all A's.
I came into high school during COVID, So I never got that really good experience, like introduction, because high school was viewed as scary for me. When we went back to 10th grade, it was more like they put the pressure of, oh, you've already been through 1 year of high school onto you. And it was like, we expect you to know how to act and do high school things. So it's like, oh, note-taking, independence, yeah, we're just gonna toss that out. You're on your own. The social setting was really hard to adapt to because I had social anxiety my 10th grade year, which really kicked in when I went in fall. I was like, this is a lot of people. Like the hallways were packed, like everything around me. Like people would say hi, I'm like, hi, it'd be like, oh, I just spoke a word, but it felt so weird to talk like in person instead of just on Zoom or virtually.
So during COVID, like we couldn't get in contact with our teachers all the time, so we couldn't like ask for help when we needed it. So I feel like a lot of our grades dropped down, and that made us all like feel bad personally and mentally. And then when we came back to school, like now, we're starting to get back up at it, but like it's still kind of, you don't get what you learned in COVID time. I know that like we're still growing up because we were in middle school when the COVID happened, so we were at home and we didn't have to we weren't socializing with people, and now that we're back to it, it's just like you're still kind of in the mindset of being in middle school and you haven't quite grown into like the high school mindset yet.
For me, COVID was a difficult time, but it was also a time where I feel like I learned a lot about myself. I have mild to moderate anxiety, and so my kind of trigger is uncertainty. So COVID wasn't the best for me, but I also learned through that my uncertainty makes me very organized, which is a good thing. So kind of I learned the bad things about myself, and then I learned how to turn it into a good thing that I feel like has made me a better person today.
COVID and everything that came along with it affected our students in many ways. I'm sure it affected most of you and your businesses as well. It's no secret academic performance was affected. In fact, the scores on the National Assessment of Education Progress released today indicate that Michigan's scores mirrored the nation as a whole. Our students suffered a little bit of a setback, and they're working toward recovering that lost learning. Our schools are working very hard to help students do that. We're not complacent. We know we have work to do, and we're rolling up our sleeves and we're doing that work. The M-STEP scores released last month spoke loudly. Across the board, students in Kent ISD are outperforming their peers across the state. SAT results show our high school students are meeting college readiness benchmarks in math and English language arts at higher rates than their peers across the state. So in some areas on the M-STEP, our scores exceed the state as a whole by as much as 10 percentage points. And we've increased graduation rates by about 10 percentage points as well over the last decade. So our students are doing better here than maybe elsewhere, but we're not complacent. We can do better. We're not going to hang our heads. We're not alone in recovering from the pandemic. All of us are still recovering in one way or another. Academic achievement is not the only marker of success. How else do we know if we're meeting students' needs? We ask and we listen. One way Kent schools are listening and leading is through the Student Perception Survey. This survey helps measure elements of student experience that academic test scores cannot. It's a way to ask, how's school? How are you doing? We heard our students continue to struggle with the expectations, with the many myriad issues that came with COVID and all the expectations they have to face. With the survey, we've found that engagement starts off very high at elementary school. I think we all know that. And it tapers off the longer students are with us. There's been much debate about the discussion of race in our schools. But when you ask our students, what you'll find is they would like that we discuss race more often. Particularly our white students respond that we don't address the issue enough. They don't know enough about it. There are clear gender differences in our schools in terms of students feel a sense of belonging and emotional health. And the majority of students feel as though they're capable of learning anything. That growth mindset is terrific. But it also tells us, as educators, when we look at their performance on standardized assessment, that we need to up our game. We need to help them better understand how they're going to use that in the future. There must be different ways to reach them, and we're working hard to figure out what those are. We're also listening to students in a way that we're going to feature with you today, bringing together high school students from around the county, from each school district, to create a school student leadership community. Some of the students are sitting at your table. Together, we're having conversations about what's important to students today, how we can help them better. We want to share how impactful these conversations can be. The best way to do that is to have a conversation right now. I'd like to welcome several members of our student leadership community to the stage. These students have volunteered to share their thoughts with you today. We have Cayman Behrens from Comstock Park High School, Terrell Daniels Jr. of Grand Rapids Union High School, Max Fechner of East Grand Rapids High School, and Anna Moliker of Northview High School. We're also very grateful to have our friend Maranda from Wood TV and ABC4 West Michigan join us to facilitate their conversation. Maranda, take it away.
Thank you, Ron. I want to thank the Kent ISD, first of all, for taking time to give students a prominent position to share their voices. And I've had the privilege of sitting at a table with them chatting for the past half hour, and I'll tell you what, you are in for some eye-opening and enlightening and hopefully some inspiring insights from these young people. So welcome to all four of you. Thank you for doing this. So appreciated. I want to get things started by kind of just moving through, and if you just want to, again, give us your first name, where you go to school, and tell me two things you like about your school right now. We're going to start at the far end.
My name's Cayman Behrens, and I go to Comstock Park. I really like being involved in school, and it's just working with other people from school and what we get to accomplish. And I really like doing theater at my school, just because all the people in it, and I love my director. It's just a really fun experience.
Great.
My name is Terrell Daniels, and I go to Union High School. And two things I like is that my staff are some of the most amazing people I know. They're very, very funny, and it makes my day. And a lot of the teachers there are very supportive, and it makes me feel very welcomed.
Great.
My name is Max. I'm a junior at East Grand Rapids High School, and I really love that it's so simple to create a personal connection with teachers and staff at my school, as well as the other students.
Excellent. Anna?
My name is Anna Malik. I go to Northview High School, and I really like just being able to show up at school and have that like social life and be able to find somebody who you can have something in common with, like anywhere you like look. And I also really like everything that they offer you and different opportunities and clubs and lots of chances to be involved.
Excellent. I'm going to start with you with the next question. We had a chance to chat at lunch, and as you've been hearing, everyone's talking about the impact of COVID. You just saw the scores on the screen. You lived through it. Really, for the first time, you've made your own history. Nobody else in history that is living today can talk to us about what it was like to live through COVID-19, but you can. You know, it's changed things academically for you, but what about some of the other aspects that you've noticed in yourself personally?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like talking about COVID is something that's just been like, you know, every day since it's happened. And I'd like to say, you know, we can just move on and it's over now, but that's clearly not the state that we're in. And I just know that before COVID, you know, I was very like self-motivated. You know, all A's. If I got like an A-, I'd get mad at myself. But then once we like transitioned into this like COVID at-home learning style, I really just lost like all sense of self-motivation, and my work ethic has like changed so much. But through like going back to school, I feel like all my teachers, still hold me at that standard and expect me to have that same work ethic, which I appreciate, but also at the same time, like it's a little tough to like stay at that standard and continue to do that. And sometimes I kind of just need somebody to be like, hey, like you're not perfect. You're not gonna get all A's unless you put in the work, because I feel like based off like freshman year and stuff like that, they have this like standard of me and idea where I'm gonna get my work done, and they kind of give me like a free pass sometimes where it's like, oh, I know that if you didn't do your homework, that means you were busy, and I know you're gonna get it done because I know you personally. But sometimes I kind of just need that extra push where it's like, oh, I could have done it, but I didn't do it because I just lost that work ethic.
Interesting. All right, so Max, we talked a little bit about how COVID hit when you were in 8th grade, middle of 8th grade, and you feel a little cheated as far as prep goes to be in your high school career.
So middle school versus high school, it's obviously a lot easier, a lot less rigor, and the content isn't as challenging. So going into COVID at the end of 8th grade, you can sort of just skirt by doing the bare minimum, submitting assignments at 11:59 p.m. You don't really learn anything, you just learn how to submit the assignment and get a decent grade. So you don't learn how to like prepare yourself for high school. I feel like maybe I didn't quite get the preparation or the skill set that you need for high school.
So the experience taught you to meet a deadline, but not really to learn much.
Yes.
Interesting. Terrell, what do you think?
Same thing as Max said. I feel like I wasn't prepared enough. When I was in middle school and COVID happened, honestly, I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't even know what was going on. Like, it felt like unrealistic. And then when I wasn't going to school and I was online, I noticed that I just lost motivation. School used to be very motivating for me. And then when I was at home and I was by myself, I just lost motivation because I was thinking, why is this happening, And when I went to high school for the first time as a sophomore, because my whole freshman year was completely snatched from me, I felt so lost. And I felt like a part of me was mad at myself because I thought that I should prepare myself. And I just wish that, COVID just didn't do that to us.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Cayman?
I agree. Motivation after COVID it's still a struggle for me today. Like, it was in the beginning, like school was a sense of like, I want to do all these assignments and get it done because I want to succeed. And now it's just more like, I just want to get it done. Like, I just want to get it done. I don't want to fail. That's more of it now. And I agree with both Max and Terrell. I feel like we didn't get prepared for high school at all because like now that we're here, it's like, oh, there's so many more opportunities that I didn't even know about. And then like, yeah, the workload is so much more, and we kind of just didn't really get an idea of it until we were there in the present, which is kind of an overwhelming.
So possibly we adults were like, let's get back at it. We know what 10th grade looks like. And you're like, wait, I haven't been there yet. Good to know. All right, so we've been talking a lot. You probably hear a lot about it on the news or on social media, this big mental health tsunami, and particularly in young people, but across the board. What are some things that your school is doing to kind of address this and help you feel supported? Do you think there's a mental health tsunami, or are we making it more than it is? Let's start with you, Anna.
Well, I feel like personally, I can't touch too much on like me having mental health issues and stuff because I haven't really been through that. But I know just experiencing like my friends and everything around me, it definitely is very prevalent today, and you see it like every single day in the school hallways, in the classroom, even just the way you're like interacting with people. But like my school does a good job of like the staff personally reaching out to people. And I know that I've had like teachers in the past who like come up to me and they're like, hey, how are you? Like, and it's not just like some generic,
fist pump.
Yeah, it's like they actually want to know how I'm doing, and I've had those conversations, and thanks to like those people, I know that they're like being genuine with me, and I can be genuine with them, and they better understand me. So that has been kind of like the big thing in my life, where I'm thankful that I haven't had to deal with those kind of struggles, but I know that they're there to support me.
Anybody else have a thought on that?
going off of what Anna said, I think our school's like best way to tackle the mental health issue has been just support from staff. I've had a lot of teachers also personally reach out to me and be like, hey, if this is too hard, like let me know, we'll work through it together, and just showing that they care really does a lot.
Yep.
So my experience hasn't been too much with the content. They more check in with you as a person. So last year, my English teacher reached out. She was like, hey, if you want to, you can just come in at lunch, come in after school, talk to me, tell me what's up, and we can work through this. So I feel like more of the personal connection than, hey, let's make sure your grades are okay, that really pull you through and make sure that you're being the best that you can.
Same for you, Terrell?
One thing that I would like to add is that I feel like when we talk about mental health and when it's put into a school environment, I feel like it's not highlighted enough. When I go into school, it's a pretty typical day, but teachers really, I feel like I understand because teachers, it's hard to get to know the students, get to allow them to open up. And I feel like we need to find more ways to allow students to open up to teachers so we can bring a better experience.
Good. What about belonging? Do you feel that you belong at your school with your peers? Why or why not? I'm going to start with you, Max.
So East Grand Rapids, it's a pretty homogenous group. I moved here in second grade from New York, a very diverse public school system. It was weird. I think every kid in my class was blonde or maybe dirty blonde or brunette.
A little variety, okay.
Yeah, a little variety. But I still feel that even if you know everyone, because it's a small school, you still maybe stick out a little bit. You're not fully part of the community. It's a little weird, not being white. I'm mixed, and also religiously I'm different. So I'm Jewish. East Grand Rapids is not. I remember we had a meeting for student leadership community on Yom Kippur, so I missed that. And I talked with Mr. Glass about how West Bloomfield did not have school for such a large population, but I was missing school and missing assignments. But my teachers did help me work through that. They helped me get what I needed to know notes and all that. So I feel like the teachers more than the students help with that.
Anna, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's almost kind of like the opposite for me from Max, because I think the students are really what made me feel like belonging in my school. My freshman year was like terrible for me. I did not want to be at Northview. I didn't know I was going to go to Northview. And I didn't really make that effort to be a part of things and talk to people because I was just still stuck in that little state where I was like, I don't want to be here. I'm going to go back to my old school. It's fine. But then, like, after COVID happened and everything, I started becoming, like, more involved in everything. So now I'm, like, constantly busy. I'm barely even, like, home. But I love that way more than I did when I was a freshman, because I was just, like, sitting there, sad, waiting to go home. But now I'm, like, I want to stay at school because I know that I'm doing lots of things to benefit them, and I get to spend time with the students who make me feel like I belong there.
Nice. Cayman, do you feel like you belong?
Personally, yeah, I feel like I belong, but I feel like part of that is because I'm so involved. So, like, I have a sense of belonging, but for the students who aren't necessarily as involved, I don't know if it's safe to say that there is one, because, like, our school environment, it is positive for the kids who are involved, but there is a lot of negative things going around too. There's a lot of racism, homophobia, and like, our school, I feel like, is working towards making that more positive, but I don't know how productive it is being yet.
All right. What do you want people in this room to know? Whether it's educators, people from your school, fellow students, what do you want them to know about how students are really doing? Because we like to talk about how you're doing, but I want to know, how are you doing? And Terrell, you're going to start it.
I feel like I, as a student, I just feel like it's like a number, all of these tests to like prove what we know, I feel like that makes me feel like, well, am I just like a science experiment? Like, am I just here to, am I here to just be like proven if we can like excel? And I feel like that shouldn't be the case. I feel like I shouldn't feel like that because when I was younger, elementary, middle school, like school was so fun. I was like, oh, yada yada, sprinkles, sparkles, you know. And then I go to high school and it's, oh, PSAT, tests, numerous of tests, work this, work that, grades, numbers, and it's just like, wow, I want to go back to being a kid again.
We all do. We all do.
Oh, yeah.
Good to know. What do you think, Max?
I think that it's maybe hard to get a pulse on how everyone's doing because within the entire student body, you're going to have groups that are doing better, groups that are doing worse, and to just generalize how everyone doing probably isn't going to do justice to those on the extreme ends or those even on the moderate ends. And I think that trying to find a general solution probably won't help. It's most likely going to be better to like look at certain groups and find out what they need and work in more like localized mindsets, not like geographically, but within the student population.
Okay, so let's say you're the principal of East Grand Rapids High School. Overall, how do you think you would feel the students are doing?
Well, if I were Mr. Weigel, I'd probably say students are doing pretty good. I think that maybe if anyone were to be unhappy, it would be the people who are not doing as well or who are like maybe taking more rigorous classes that are feeling that they're trying to do their best or they're not getting enough help and sort of maybe ignored or outside of the view of the administration.
Anna, if you could institute one change at your school, or maybe in all high schools, to make things better for the students, what would it be?
That's a good question.
Thank you. I didn't write it.
I think, honestly, just the change isn't just like a rule that you could make. It's really just like a community and the influence around there because the change that I would like to see is just being like open-minded and welcoming. And you know, like something that plays a big role in like who I am is like my faith. And so I try to like keep that in mind. Like I want to be a welcoming person and open-minded. And I'm not, even if I don't agree with what you're saying, I still like, that doesn't mean I don't like you. That just means I don't like your choice or something like that. So I think schools just have to do like a better job of saying that to people too, so that there's not as much like discrimination and just making that change where they're like kind of more verbal about what like them as a school like they want to see and what they believe.
What do you think, Cayman?
I would like simply just agreeing with Anna, like creating a more welcoming environment that would just overall, I think it would just improve a lot of the issues that we see, and more just basic respect. Because yeah, you don't have to agree with somebody, but just not liking them because of one disagreement is not a fair judgment. So making just a more basic line of respect and just having Comstock Park be a more welcoming community, I feel like would overall make our community better.
Terrell or Max, you want to add anything?
I feel like creativity and freedom should be allowed more. I feel like if we allow students to be more creative and allow them to express their ideas in different shapes and forms and formats, it'll change them. I feel like they can connect with the community more. And with the freedom, I feel like it's relatively the same thing. I just think that school is just so strict, you know, and like, it's not prison, but it feels almost like prison, you know? Like, it's not prison, but...
We told you they were going to say exactly what they felt, so there you go.
But yeah, I feel like more like I can't do as much as I want to do it. Yeah.
Max, do you feel free to create and be you and think the way you want to think and express your opinions in a safe, respectful environment?
I think that at East we do a pretty good job of that. I feel that if I were to want to explore something, I could start a club or maybe talk to a teacher who has some experience in that just on my own free will. And we can also talk to other kids, which I think helps. But sort of the judgment or like neutrality of it, I think the lack of that would come from the student body. It's like once you start like exploring your own personal whatever, people like, you know, heads butt, it happens, but I think for the most part, people do explore what they want to.
Why is it so important for us, the adults in this room, to listen to you? Why do we need to be listening to you? Anna?
Well, this is for like high school, right? So if you're gonna want to make a change in your school, then that should be for the students. So hearing directly from them is where you'll get those ideas and know exactly what they want or what they want to see. Obviously, you can't fulfill everybody's like wishes and hopes, but just like trying to stay on that track, or at least take the first step into being what something that everybody would feel like belong to, or something like that. That was worded really terribly, but
I get
you know, just so that
you.
you like feel that connection to your school. It just takes like that one step to say, hey, like you're welcome here, we respect you here, and this is what we offer you, and this is what you can do. But it's also like, you know, like a two-way relationship. It's not just, you know, you're at school and you're on your own, and all you have to do is like your homework and everything. It's like they're there for you too.
Terrell, I feel like you have something to say on this one.
Yeah, I was waiting for this. I feel like it's important to know what we're thinking and what we're saying, because you're influencing younger generations. It's more than just school. It extends way beyond this. Kids that come even before us, they will change society in a way that we can't even comprehend. It's just, as society grows, we evolve, you know? I mean, I hear like a lot of adults talk about this compared to nowadays, we're spoiled and all of that. And I feel like if you can know what we're thinking and what we're saying, you can find the best solution to allow us to excel in life. Yeah.
So Cayman, what can we learn from students? We're all here to learn. We want to make it better. We're doing the best we can, but we can always do better. What can we learn?
You can just, by talking to students, you learn a more accurate perspective of what's going on. Because talking to students, you get to listen and learn about all of the things that we have outside of school. For some, it varies from person to person. For some, it might not be a busy schedule. For some, it might be. And you can truly understand like how much effort they're putting into school, how much effort they're trying to put into school, and just how hard life as a teenager can really be.
Max, what's something that students want to say to educators, but they don't have that opportunity? And you have them all in the room.
Maybe sometimes we don't even know what we want.
Fair.
We might see that there's something wrong, or that it's not the way that we think it would work best, but we can't quite place it. So while you guys are also working to identify a problem and a solution, so are we.
Good. So we've got to understand each other. I really like that. Anna, anything you want to add?
I kind of disagree with everything they said. I think they summed it up really well. So
good answer. What makes you thankful you had the chance to sit in this chair today? Cayman?
I just think overall this has been a really cool experience, and I feel like I get to take this experience back to my school and what I've learned from it. And I think my favorite part about these meetings is because we're all high school students who have lived through the pandemic, so we face the same issues, some different issues, but we can all come together, share it, and learn about it through a bunch of different perspectives, which kind of helps you empathize and understand how some other people or other students at your school might be dealing with it.
Excellent. Do you have faith in America after seeing this? Absolutely. Great job, students. Thank you. And you know, I want to say that our social media lines are open and we want to continue to hear from you. So whether you talk to your educators through Instagram or your Facebook or DMing them, let them know what you're thinking, because this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Thank you.
Why we need to listen more? I think the benefits are very clear. I think it also helps us recognize one more time how important a good teacher is to student success. That connection, we often talk about, what was that teacher that inspired you? And it's those stories and those connections that are so important in students' lives. And I'd ask us to, let's remember the words of poet William Butler Yeats. When he spoke about education, he said, education is not the filling of a bucket. It's lighting a fire. And I think we shouldn't perseverate too much over the lost test scores and maybe a math fact or two. And instead, let's focus on what we need to do to help light that fire in our students and create that passion for learning and lifelong learning. So let's hear a little bit more about what we can change in education from the words of our students.
I think that it's really important for students to be given opportunities to have groups where they can meet with kids of different backgrounds, because I know for me it was very difficult going through high school with very few kids that looked like me and very few administrators that looked like me, and it's very important for kids to be able to have that.
I think the staff is what really holds our school together. Everyone just loves to be there and they all seem to love their job. So I feel like hiring people who have that same love and have that passion to help the community can help people feel like they belong, help them feel like everything's gonna be all right.
So at my school we have lots of different groups. Even if you went to a meeting you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to be here, they're gonna make sure you want to come back. They make sure that we feel heard in those meetings. And I think if we were heard as much in the teacher staff meetings as we were in the group meetings that we have, our school would be so much better.
Schools providing good counselors that are not only there to help you with grades, but are certified in mental health and knows how to talk to kids. I feel like if schools could just get a grasp of that all over America, all over the country, I feel like that would be the one thing that would really help kids grow and go to what they want to do in the future.
If a teacher notices something, almost just talking to the student, because a lot of times that can be brushed over. But yeah, I think it's starting to get better every day. People are just noticing more, and I hope it continues to go that direction.
Our students clearly have some ideas as to what we could do to make their experience better. Now let's meet some of our educators, the people who our communities hired to lead their school districts and to be the educational leaders in their community. Let's ask them what they feel and what they're doing to address this issue. Kevin Polston, the superintendent of the Kentwood Public Schools, will be moderating a discussion. Joining Superintendent Polston is Dr. Ledrian Roby, superintendent of the Grand Rapids Public Schools, Dr. Heidi Katula, the superintendent of the East Grand Rapids Public Schools, Scott Smith, superintendent of the Cedar Springs Public Schools, and Dr. Diedrich Martin, superintendent of the Caledonia Community Schools. Kevin, take it away.
All right, thanks, Ron. All right, we have a tough act to follow. How about another round of applause for our student panel? So the 2 years preceding this school year were among the most challenging any school leader has faced, and it's great to be in person today to have this community conversation so we can project how we're going to move forward. Nationally, of the 100 largest districts in the country, there was 25% turnover last year of superintendents, compared to just 18% pre-pandemic. And so I'm glad that none of you are part of those statistics and that you're here, with us today. So let's start with just a reaction, to the student panel. And Dr. Martin, I'm going to ask you to just start. You heard some powerful comments. So any reactions or reflections?
First of all, wow, the students, they did a fabulous job. And several of them had made comments that really stuck with me. One of them is the comment about us just coming back and just jumping business as usual, and realizing that some of these kids didn't get a chance to do high school in the traditional sense. And as adults, we wanted to jump back in because we were hearing that from our community. Get back to business. It wasn't like that for the kids. And the other one is sometimes I think in our system we become over-fascinated with a number. What did they do on a test score? What is their GPA? And we got to realize that we're dealing with and we're forming lives here. And so, to get from the start to the end, it takes 13 years to develop our product. And so one test score, whether it's SAT or a GPA, does not make the sum of the whole student.
Yep. Superintendent Smith?
Organizations across the country, across the world are recognizing the value of life-work balance. And to be honest, hearing the voices of our students today, we've missed out on some of that as educators. Because it's all about getting through the curriculum. It's all about meeting the timelines. It's all about the scores in many cases. But we're working with human beings who are thriving and growing and really helping to lead us. And so it's really about providing them with opportunities to have that balance between life and the work that they're doing in the classroom. And we need to do a better job of that.
Dr. Katula?
Again, I echo the same comments. Our kids are amazing. I mean, they're the whole reason we're here. I think we have to do more of listening to them and trying to understand what we can do to make the K-12 educational system and pre-K meet the needs of all of our learners. There were so many thoughts I had as they were continuing to chat and share different examples. I think about how many of our kindergartners, our first graders, and some of our second graders have never been in school. We have some that are just coming back this year. So that whole socialization component is missing from play and from mental health and how we interact with one another. So they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. Dr. Roby?
Agreed. I think that the young scholars that we saw on screen and also on the stage, what kind of was resonating with me is having that sense of grace, that as they are experiencing school in a very different way, that we need to extend grace as they are learning how to navigate in a pandemic. And I know that all of us were navigating that same experience, but for adults, I think we have a deeper tool belt sometimes, and we need to make sure that the young people that we are working with, we extend the grace. One of the young ladies on the screen talked about drowning, and that kind of resonated with me because I was thinking, oh gosh, are we just so concerned about numbers and scores and GPAs that we're not seeing the people behind it? And so just to remember to extend grace to those young folks who are trying their best to live up to the expectations that the adults have for them.
So Dr. Roby, you have a lot to be proud of at Grand Rapids Public Schools, and we're going to use one of those numbers right now, though, home to the highest performing high school in the state of Michigan and City High School. You also have students from more than 70 countries. Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Students from more than 70 countries speak more than 80 languages, and I know that you're student-centered with the decisions you make, and I know that those successes are not an accident. In many ways, the analogy of a duck smooth on top but paddling like crazy underneath holds true. So as an educational leader, what keeps you up at night, but what also keeps you going?
What keeps me up is some of the things that the young people were speaking about. I worry, are they getting a chance to experience childhood? And that's, you know, we've had a lot of loss with lost experiences with dances and celebrations and things of that nature. And for the young people who were even on the stage talking about that transition from middle school to high school, it is very different. And so the first time you do something is the first time that you do it. And even though you've gone through the grade, but it was in a different format, we need to make sure that we are really telling our stories and providing opportunities for our scholars to have celebrations, because it's more, school should be more than just the teaching. It's about the experiences, the socialization, all of those things that make school fun. And even as we were looking at the data around how students are less engaged as they get older, that's always a concern for me, because I think, what do we do as a system that kids are so excited in kindergarten, and by the time they get to high school, they're like, yeah, whatever.
Creativity and fun seems to go away as we get older.
Yes.
Any follow-up? So Dr. Katula, something that distinguishes East Grand Rapids Public Schools is the tremendous support from the community, the pride, whether it's the volunteerism or the school's foundation, and there's great reason for that. Top 5 schools in the state is measured by the SAT. You guys have 5 National Merit semifinalists this year, 147 MHSA state championships, most in the state, and numerous We the People state national championships. Lots of great things going on there. And we know that comprehensive experience involves the sense of belonging, the wellness of our kids, and several students on the panel spoke about their mental health. That comment from Malia about, we're doing the best we can, but we're drowning. They know that's near to your heart as a leader, so share a little bit more about how East Grand Rapids is supporting the mental wellness of students.
Since, I'd say, coming out of COVID, we've added school psychologists, we've added social workers, we've added guidance counselors at the middle school and high school level. The addition of the social worker at the elementary schools is an absence of a guidance counselor. We're also looking to hire a wellness coordinator that will help build a system of support for our students for K through 12, so that the right and the left hand are on the same page as we support our students going forward. In addition to that, we've started implementing a curriculum resource for Second Step and Trails, K through 8, so that we have a continuity of language and support, so our kids are clear on what supports are in place and what language they can use and access to support them. We're also doing restorative practices to build our culture so that we have a space where people are more comfortable talking about how they feel, as well as when there is harm done in a relationship or in a classroom environment, we can talk about how we feel and how we can move together and move forward. Even though we have all those things, as our kids described earlier on the panel, every student is so different. And so you'll have a student who is trying so hard, and I was talking to some of the kids earlier today, to be perfect or to keep it together. And as adults, we do that as well. We make ourselves look good, we dress for the part, and we do everything we can to fit the part every day. But our kids are also trying to keep up with each other. They're also trying to make their parents happy and fit into a world that they don't quite know what it is yet. So I think some of those additional stresses will hit our kids at different times. And depending on if they have coping skills, if they have good coping skills, or if they have a network that they can lean on and support them as they go through that is critical. What I worry about is the kids who don't have that or aren't verbalizing how they feel. We see differences in gender too. Girls are more verbose. They often tell us how they feel a little bit more frequently than our boys do. And certainly our students who are fluid are struggling as well on how to verbalize that and where they are. So as much as we're doing so many wonderful things, COVID has certainly, with the social isolation, added a whole nother component to what our students must work through as they continue to matriculate. I think we have more work to do.
You spoke a lot about systems of support, for our students, and we also know those relationships matter. Across Kent ISD, almost 60 additional professionals in nursing, psychology, counseling, social work since the pandemic. And so that's clear ways, and you articulated some of those in East Grand Rapids, but we heard students oftentimes, it's that caring adult that's that they can confide in and speak to that really makes a difference as far as their sense of belonging.
One thing I'd add to that, the students earlier today said they also want an adult who is vulnerable and empathetic and shares their experiences. And whether they themselves went through anxiety, stress, depression, opening up. I mean, we talk all the time about when you see a scar on someone's leg, you're more inclined to ask what happened, but we don't ask that. I mean, the general response is, how are you? I'm good, or I'm well, and we all move on. But if we can have that interaction with our students be more vulnerable or share their own life experiences, that kids are more likely to open up.
Yeah, well said. So Dr. Martin, Caledonia has also experienced some great successes. Just last year, Dutton Elementary is a national Blue Ribbon school. Certainly a sense of pride in the community. Also, just performance outpacing state and local average as far as growth, and we value that comprehensive experience, and I know you do too in Caledonia, the 3-time defending state equestrian champs. That's pretty cool. We talked about sense of belonging. Is we know that students have to have that in order to achieve, but they also need to feel safe.
Yes.
And when you look at survey data across the state, across the country, school safety is top of mind for parents, our students, and also our educators, especially in regards to recent tragedies at Oxford and Uvalde, Texas. Share a little bit more about what's being done in Caledonia in regards to school safety and making sure that our students are safe.
Yes, so sadly after the Oxford situation, and we do this every year anyway, but we wanted to relook at some of the things that we have in place for safety. So physical safety, we've been pretty good at having locking vestibules coming into the facilities, making sure the doors are locked, those type of things. And we already had a Kent County Sheriff Deputy as a school resource officer. Since the recent set of tragedies, and one being closer to home, we've added 2 school security officers. In addition to that, we added about 11 or 12 building safety/utility paraeducators to help with some of the logistics of making sure that all of our kids are safe. Above and beyond that, though, we also realize that there's a physical aspect, but there's a social, emotional, and a mental aspect. So we have added more counselors and social workers. In addition to that, we've developed some partnerships with Arbor Circle for emotional support, with Pine Rest for mental health supports for students, and in addition to some things that we had in place, such as Be Nice, okay to say tip lines, and other privacy or ways that students could communicate if they felt that there was a sense of danger privately. We added capturing kids' heart training for everyone because we felt like it's not only important to deal with the physical safety or the mechanical safety of the building, but that emotional sense of safety for our kids. And so we've had some good response from our staff and our students and our parents this year because we had bus drivers, custodians, secretaries, teachers, everyone getting training, because we're recognizing coming out of COVID that sense of safety, that sense of belonging, that sense of care and support, that's vital to kids and to everyone. And so we've looked at it from those 3 different lenses: the mechanical, the physical with the people, as well as the social and emotional, and adding more supports there. And so that's how we've been beefing up security in our district, if you will.
Yeah, we can never forget that we're in the relationships business.
Yep.
And we know that, as many as 85% or more of acts of school violence, the perpetrator shared with another person prior to that happening. So if our students have a safe place where they can report, a caring adult that they can confide in, we know that that's a great prevention strategy for safety, and evidence supports that. I also want to say thank you to our legislators in the room. This year there was legislation that allocated additional funding for school safety that was signed by the governor. That allows schools to really act swiftly for some of the physical safety upgrades, but also some of the support, positions that Dr. Martin mentioned as well. And so it all goes back to learning and academics. And, Superintendent Smith at Cedar Springs, your 8th grade class last year had some significant gains, 25% increase in ELA for your 8th graders compared to themselves as 7th graders. That means you're doing something right in regards to teaching and learning and academics. But we've heard a lot in the headlines about lost learning due to the pandemic. And so, what's your reaction to, students losing ground and how you're supporting that academic recovery efforts? And, one thing I'd like to share, I think it's of importance. In Kent County, every school district during the pandemic had an offer of in-person learning in each school year. There's no other metropolitan area in Michigan that can say that, and we believe that that is, crucial to those scores that you saw of Kent County outperforming the state. And so Cedar Springs is certainly an example of that. Superintendent Smith, please share a little bit more.
No, thank you, Kevin. Of the many things that I heard our students share, Malia Van Kampen, as she shared that some of us feel like we're drowning, took me back to lifeguard training. And one of the things that we learned as lifeguards in training was to recognize the signs of active drowning and the signs of passive drowning. Active drowning is obvious. The individual is visibly struggling in the water. And we see signs of students actively failing or actively drowning academically, socially, emotionally each and every day. Those students who are acting out, those students who are not completing assignments, those students are obvious. But to Malia's point, and I'm so appreciative of that, is we have students who are passively drowning as well, who are passively hurting emotionally, who are passively struggling academically, who are passively staying up until 3 a.m. to complete those assignments, and we don't see that. And so it was a real point of enlightenment to hear that perspective for us. This is a significant challenge for educators across the country, and for students across the country, and for families across the country. No one individual, no one group holds all of the answers, nor do they have the capacity to truly move our supports forward in such a way that it can satisfy the needs of each one of our students. Each student as individuals needs something unique. And for some of our students, we can apply strategies that we have implemented in the past in regard to making changes or modifications to daily instructional practice in the classroom. For some of our students, we know that they are going to need additional supports, whether they are academic supports or social supports or emotional supports. And then we have other students that are going to need even more than that. And so for us, it's about being mindful of those students who are actively struggling as well as those students who are passively struggling, and then providing them with the resources, the tools, the experiences, the supports that they need as individuals, using a lens of equity, whereby we provide each student with specific things that they need in order to thrive. One solution will not meet the needs of each one of our students, and therefore that equity lens is critical for us to view each situation, each moment, to best support the needs of each one of our students.
Yeah, and that's evident that some of the strategies you're using are definitely working. But we know that the generational funding support that we've had from the state and federal government to support recovery is incredibly appreciated, and it's going to be necessary for comprehensive recovery. But with 85% of our school budgets going towards staffing, it also casts a light on the educator shortage that we are facing. So Dr. Roby, you heard from several student panelists about the impact of staff. In one of the videos, Kareem shared about his counselor helping him get back on track and attaining excellent grades, and others who helped his and others' growth. So talk more about the educator shortage. What impact has it had in GRPS, and what's your level of concern?
I would say that it's had some great impact in GRPS. We are actively recruiting staff, teachers, support staff, and have kind of expanded our hiring season to a year-round process, to be sensitive to the fact that we are seeing those needs. With respect to scholars having support, it's more than just teachers. It is the counselors, it is the parapros, it includes principals and bus drivers and food service and custodial support, which all make a school healthy and a place to be. And so you think of a school as a building, but school really is the people that make it the place to be. With respect to the teacher shortage in particular, if we are honest, in this state, we have been in a teacher shortage crisis for probably close to 20 years. And what I mean by that, there has been a decline in the number of teachers who are entering the profession and then staying either in the profession or even going through a college of education program. One of our universities, local universities, 10 years ago graduated about 8,000 teachers from their college of education. And this last year they graduated 120, 130. And so if you think about how significant that is, we have 600 public schools in the state of Michigan. That's not even a teacher, a district. And so this crisis has been something that has been in the making for quite some time. With that, I think it's how we have treated educators as a whole. Those of you who are educators in this room, you will, as I say this, you'll probably appreciate and kind of shake your head. We've not always been respectful to the work that teachers do, respectful to the work that bus drivers do. And what has always fascinated me about that is we are the people who are in contact and have direct connection to young people and build up all other careers. This is a very valuable profession. And it's not just head work, because we do the curriculum and looking at state standards and assessments and all those other things, but it's also heart work. And what I mean by that, it's those connections that the adults make so that school is a safe place where children want to come, where teachers or other staff members, they see young people who don't quite look right or they're showing signs of distress, and they make those connections so that we can get help and support for those young people. It is, it's something that we have to be honest about. How have we lifted up this profession? And then also being creative about how do we get people to go into the profession? And so with young people, and I talk to young people all the time and ask, you know, are you interested in a career in teaching? And they're like, oh no, because you got to do this. And it's like, but there's so much more. And so we have to be our best advocates and proponents about the value of education and how making those connections. And one of the things I always, as a former classroom teacher, when a young person would be like, I got it, or, you know, and they made that connection, that was like gold to me, because you do these things, and when a young person makes the connection to what it is and then they build their own confidence, that is worth more than so many other things. And so just kind of lifting that up. So yes, we are heavily recruiting. Anybody who's looking, grps.org, we go to the hiring section. And we really do. It's like we want to make sure that our staff have a sense of belonging, because when our staff have a sense of belonging, that translates to our young people, our scholars having a sense of belonging as well. So it's the lift of how do we embrace people so that they want to be in the profession, and then have them translate that to the young people that they're serving.
So you guys didn't know that this is an open interview for bus drivers. Our superintendent's in the room. You know, raise your hand if you have openings for bus drivers right now. Yeah. So it's a great job. You know, you get to meet the kids the first in the morning. You're the last to see them in the afternoon. In all seriousness, those support staff positions have been hard for us to fill, and that's not unlike what we're seeing in, you know, the restaurant industry or the service industry. We're not immune to that in education, you know, either. Something that we do need to work on is our own educator morale. Pre-pandemic, 75% of educators said that they would not recommend the profession to another. That's pre-pandemic. And so we have to find ways to lift up our educators if we are going to grow the next generation of educators. And I know that some of those on the student leadership community are interested in that, so we have to lift them up. Okay, we have a couple minutes left, and these are rapid fire. All right, for superintendents, that means like ultra rapid fire, okay? All right, so Superintendent Smith, we're going to start with you with this first question, then we're just going to go to the left, so to Dr. Martin, Dr. Roby, and then Dr. Catula. All right? What gives you hope for the future of education in 3 words or less?
Each must thrive.
He was prepared. All right, Dr. Martin.
Kindness, dignity, and respect shown through mental health supports.
All right, he used some other people's words, but go ahead, Dr. Roby. What gives you hope?
Learning out loud. I think it's important our scholars are encouraged to share their learning out loud.
Can I have 4?
All right, you get to borrow one.
Kids are our future. I really do think.
That's awesome. All right, Dr. Martin, I'm going to give you a whole sentence on this one. And we're going to go to your left after this. So, Dr. Roby, you're on deck.
Okay.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about our current system, what change would you make?
More respect for the educators in our current system.
Awesome. Dr. Roby?
A place where children always felt safe. I think that's important.
Dr. Catula?
Teacher certification flexibility.
All right. Superintendent Smith?
To me, it's about coming together as a community, regardless of our faith backgrounds or our political beliefs, and focusing in on what's truly important, and that's each student that comes through the door every day. And we just don't have that right now.
All right.
And it's getting worse.
Last question. Dr. Catula, get to start. We've clearly identified some of the challenges, but there's also opportunity and things that excite you about the future. You'll start, Dr. Catula, then we'll go to your left, and each person will get to respond.
The kids, again, I think they're going to teach us what we need to do to create systems and structures that make it more supportive for them. And as our kids talked about, every kid sees things differently, but the more we engage in focus groups and hear, I mean, they're our constituents, they're our primary stakeholder, and they have to help inform the system that we build.
Absolutely.
Yeah, each student is an opportunity. And our journey's an infinite journey. We'll never get there. But each day is an opportunity to learn from what we did the day before and get better. And that's what drives me.
Right. Dr. Martin?
I think the richness and the diversity that our students bring, I look at education as the base profession and make all other careers possible. And when you see such a lively group, such a diverse group with different thoughts, it gives me hope about a better future.
Dr. Roby?
Our young people, I think, when I listen to the young people on stage and just how introspective and reflective they are, and I was like, my gosh, I wasn't that deep at 17 or 18. And so that's what inspires me, and that they really do want to have voice, and they will stand on their beliefs in a way that we as adults sometimes shy away from. And so that's what gives me hope, because they're not afraid to engage in their beliefs and to push back on things that may not seem fair or seem just. And so that's, to me, that gives me hope that they have that voice and that agency.
So I'm here today because an educator believed in me. I know many others can share that same feeling. So thank you to our panelists for your leadership during trying times, but also for your openness on those challenges and hopes for the future. It's clear that your leadership has made a difference for the students, staff, and the communities that you serve. Really appreciate your candor, your wisdom, but also your care for the children of the community. And as Terrell said, kids will change society in ways we cannot comprehend. I thought that was incredibly well said. We're all better because of each of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. How about another round of applause for our superintendent? As we're learning today, I think it's something that's reinforcing what we knew. That is, this is a relationship business. And every student is different. Every student's needs are different. We're in a system that was designed for standardization. And then that system became a system of mass customization to try to meet the needs. And what we're finding now is that we have to meet the needs of each child, to understand where each student is, to have a system that funds each student's needs, because that's equitable, not equal. Every student doesn't need the same thing. Every student needs what they need to be successful. And we want to help every student achieve their dreams. Let's see a little bit of those. Let's hear a little bit about those dreams now.
The overall goal for me is I would like to just help people in some way, shape, or form.
I really came to like education itself. So I'm looking to be a high school teacher, such as being an ESL teacher and teaching English as a second language.
Once I graduate from high school, I want to go to college. I actually want to be a neuroscience researcher. I want to study the brain. After I had COVID, my taste and smell never came back. And I want to be able to look inside the brain and find ways to help other people that don't have those senses, be able to, senses are really important, be able to experience the world, basically.
I'd like to go to college. I like to be a genealogist, working with genes and maybe in the medical field so I could find out what my cause of my disability is. I'd love to be able to help with that.
I want to study political science. I plan to go into law school after that and do politics after that. I want to be able to solve problems on a bigger level.
I would love to go in the medical field and just help people, maybe even be a counselor of some kind, but I want to help people.
I really want to be a lawyer, and I think that just stems from my desire to help people.
We all need to know is just how our actions affect other people, right? I feel like just being kind to people, even when you don't know them, right? Giving a firm handshake, smiling, that could change someone's day.
I always hear people in my grade or in other grades complaining about just, the anxieties that come with everything and the high pressures. But I feel like we're all as a class and even as a whole school have been able to learn to live through all of this, and we have become stronger from it. High school has been a roller coaster, but I'm in the home stretch and I'm really excited about my future.
I want to thank each of you for coming today and for participating and learning more about the young men and women who will be, the leaders of our future. I can't think of a more important endeavor than education. And we're all in it together. The young people you've heard from today, the more than 100,000 who weren't here, they're going to be your colleagues down the road. They're going to be your employees. They're going to be our elected officials. They're going to be the people who are serving on our nonprofit boards. They're going to be the ones who are carrying us on into the future. And they need all of us. And we need all of them to be successful. So let's keep this dialogue going. Thank you so much. We hope this is the first of many State of the Students events. And know that each one of our school districts is working very hard to understand the needs of every student. Every student at one time or another is going to need something additional, some additional help. Maybe it's a kid who can accomplish almost anything and needs more challenges. But then there are others who just need help. We heard today, every kid is different. We need to help each one of them succeed and fulfill their potential. And so thank you for joining us in that effort.